Hello everyone, my name is Med Scorpion and welcome back to the Destiny 2 Reset. Now it is 7 of 8 for the weeks to go by, which means the seasonal story is about to hit its precipice, but at that point there isn't that much else kind of going on except for one big thing. Now, going into the broad of today, we have a Gambit Infamy booster, which means if you wanted to grind out Gambit ranks and get a little bit of an extra pep to it, Gambit rank points are increased. Not loot, just rank. But aside from that, in terms of Vanguard this week, I believe the Conquest mode has opened. Which, if you don't know what that means, but basically, if you have Conqueror already unlocked, then you can go to the node and basically pick any Grandmaster you haven't completed in order to gild your Conqueror title. Now, keep in mind, this is only the ones you haven't completed. As soon as you completed it the first time on Grandmaster, it will remove it from the list until you earn Conqueror Gilded. At that point, you will be reduced to only playing the weekly loadout. Speaking of the weekly loadout, it is currently the Light Blade in the Throne World. Modifiers including Solar and Arc Shields, Barrier Unstoppable Champions, Arc Threat for incoming arc damage being improved. Then the usual Grandmaster modifiers, Empath for no chaff, and Empath, which means no radar, increased melee damage. Overcharge weapons, Strand and Arc Surge, and Overcharge grenade launchers, and the weapon to drop this week, which is all the way around. I forget what was first on the list, but we shall find out here at Zavala in a moment. But the rotation has gone all the way around. Now, I would recommend, too, in case it comes back around on a different weapon. It is currently loaded question, but I would recommend that if you have a friend that has their Conqueror Gilding and it's an easier Nightfall, not any of split, but let's just say an easier Nightfall, if you wanted to wait until the week came around that there was a different Adept available like Warden's Law, Braytech, or Praestionyx, if you wanted to wait around for a better weapon and wanted an easier Nightfall, the different Nightfalls all have the same drop regardless of which ones you do. So currently right now, if you went through all the Grandmaster nodes, you would be getting nothing but loaded questions. If you had a friend that you wanted to keep from finishing that so you can get a few easier Nightfalls on a harder one but one of the gear, you can go ahead and do that to kind of cheese out the rotation. Now, aside from that, in terms of Crucible, we have Rotators and no Iron Banner again, which means we'll also have Trials this weekend. Clash, as well as Momentum Controls, a bunch of variety of Slayer and Control versions, as well as Zone Control or Checkmate, I think it's Checkmate Survival is actually what's in the list this time. So, on that note then, going throughout the season, of course, the season has gone forward as usual, and now there will be Legendary Savathun's Spire as usual as well. Now, there isn't any sort of locked setup for this, so it's just kind of going in and doing it as required. Modifiers including the usual Void Threat, Barrier, and Overload champions, and the usual seasonal overcharges, Strand and Arc Surge, and Overcharge Machine Gun. Then, going throughout the rest of the seasonal stuff while we're here, Legendary Salvage is currently Hive, Engineering, Ordnance Disposal, Site Reliability with Ashradat the Hive Knight for the final boss. And then on that note, that's pretty much everything else seasonal aside from the challenges, which we are still running out of challenges to earn. We're week 7 of 10 of the fullest challenges. The challenges are as follows. Basically, complete this week's seasonal story. Powercaster for defeating combatants with power weapons in Season of the Witch activities. Ritual Rampage for rapidly defeating combatants and defeating challenging combatants in Altars of Sorrow. Boomsayer, which is defeating targets with rocket launchers or machine guns instead of grenade launchers. Earn bonus progress by defeating guardians or by defeating combatants in Season of the Witch activities. Lost in Legend for completing a Lost Sector on Legend or higher. Basically just do the daily Lost Sector. Guardian Spirit for assisting your allies via revives, healing, overshields, and subclass buffs in Vanguard, Gambit, or Crucible playlist. Just throw on Boots of the Assembler and Well Lock. That should get that done quickly. And then Gotta Win 'em All for completing activities and playlist activities. Bonus progress is granted for completing Vanguard playlist activities at hero difficulty or higher, basically Nightfalls, or for winning Gambit or Crucible matches. Then we also have Enlightened Gambit for defeating targets with Arc, Solar, or Void subclass in Gambit. Bonus progress awarded for Ability Final Blows and, of course, Guardian Final Blows. And then Rapid Precision for getting Rapid Precision Final Blows. Bonus progress is granted for every target defeated after the second one, which basically just get lots of headshots in a row. Then going into the rest of the world. Now, the current rotating farming stuffs. Now, wait a minute. A raid got skipped. Unless it didn't. Hang on. The math, when did these all come out? Actually, no. Actually, so some of my friends were actually talking mistakenly. Because it was King's Fall last week, people thought that it was going to be Avowed Disciple, but I forgot that King's Fall was before Root of Nightmares. Which means Root of Nightmares is currently the weekly farming raid. Well, actually, no, my brain just forgot about it. So, unlike usual, now challenges are active, including all challenges, which also means that Root of Nightmare Master Mode is around, which this week is giving out Resilience-focused armor. And there are a variety of modifiers, including all 3 elemental shields, Barrier and Unstoppable champions, Seasonal Overcharge, as well as Arc and Strand, and then Overcharge Shotgun. So, if you're wanting to go after Master Mode to get the Adepts, or just trying to wrap up the rest of the red borders from Root of Nightmares, now is the week to do it. And while we were here talking about Neomuna, Vex Incursion Zone is in Zephyr Concourse. The weekly farming mission is Downfall, which is basically the Radio Mast mission. And then, at that point, that is pretty much everything else to do with the Neomuna. I keep forgetting there isn't actually much else to talk about here. And then for our weekly farming dungeon, it is currently Duality on the Moon, which means you can farm for Artifice gear in addition to just going after everything. And the focus, was it a no, there was just Artifice armor, but still Arc, Strand Surge, Sniper Overcharge, and Barrier Unstoppable champions, as well as Arc and Void and Solar shields instead. And like I said, it is the farming dungeon, which means if you want to farm for Heart Shadow, or just try to get the good roll on variety guns, red borders, or just want better armor, it is currently farmable, so you can do it an infinite number of times. Then, in terms of the Dares of Eternity rotation, currently for Legend mode, it is Vex, Cabal, and Crota for the final round. Now, in terms of the rest of the the raids throughout the rest of the world, Last Wish Challenge is currently Strength of Memory Challenge, which if I recall is Ribbon Challenge. And then Garden of Salvation, while it's here, is the Leftovers Challenge, which is First Encounter Challenge. Then going to Europa for Deepstone Crypt, it is currently the, of all trades, Nuclear Descent Challenge, which is an annoying one because you have to trade out all of the jobs, and everyone has to do every role at least once in the 6 phases. Then, going into Savathun's Throne World for it, we have, for Valor Disciple, Swift Destruction, which is First Encounter Challenge. Basically, you have to kill all the Unstoppable Abominations in relatively the same time. And then for the Legends Raids, currently for Vault of Glass, it is the Wait For It Challenge, which is Templar Challenge. And for King's Fall, it is the Hands Off Challenge, which I always forget what that is, but, you know, it's hands off. And while we're here, Crota's End, it is currently the Third Encounter Challenge, which is Irute, which is Equal Vessels. Basically, think of it this way. You cannot have this, goodness. The chalice has to rotate between every person before it goes to another person. So you cannot go back and forth in an order until everyone has touched it. Basically, you have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, give number 6 the chalice, and plant it before number 1 can pick it up again. And of course, because Master Mode, it means random stuff is available. However, the current recovery-focused armor, and then the usual modifiers going forward with Overcharge Glaive in addition to that. Although it also says there's everything. I do wonder if that's a bug, considering Hive is only Barrier Unstoppables. I doubt they made Overload Champion just for that. And while we're in the Legends tab as well, Presage is currently the farming dungeon, or the farming exotic mission. I keep wanting to call it dungeon. Which means if you want any of the gear from Season 17, aka Menagerie or Haunted gear, that is currently farmable for red borders, as well as the Dead Man's Tale, which is still a light of its former self, but at the same time, you do get options there for an exotic. And for the rest of the world, that is pretty much wrapping it up out here. So it's time to start talking to our various vendors to see what they have for sale in the tower. Now remember, some of these is going to change what is bought when the legendary shard deprecation happens, and I'm just going to start throwing this in there. If you want to make use of your shards, buy everything. Max out your upgrade modules, max out a variety of things, buy all the rally flags you can, because they're just going away. There isn't going to be an exchange. They're just going to be deleted, so might as well get them while you can. On the front page, we have Whispering Slab, which is a pretty not that terrible bow, but at the same time, it is still very outdated at this point, so it's very limited on its options for everything. Don't even think it can get Archer's Tempo now that I think of it. Nope, that's contradictory. It can. I know it can. Then Quick Draw and Vorpal. Not bad. Retrofit Escapade. If you have a few deep-sided harmonizers, I'd recommend getting this one in case you didn't want to wait until the next time Seraph Station was available for the weekly mission. While this setup isn't exactly meta, it's close to it. 4th times the charm target lock is the go-to. Great for ammo, great for solid damage if you want a machine gun. Night Watch, another case like Whispering Slab. It's quite old, it has a pretty limited perk pool, pretty solid gun, but at the same time is very outdated. Then NEOD from Season of the Haunted, pretty not so spectacular. It's another copy of Antiope, which was a killer in year 1 in terms of Crucible, but then it kind of fell off and no one has ever had need for it, plus it's just kind of meh. Then Fugue 55, which is very similarly so. This is definitely PvE setup. Now, it has the best solid perks for repeated ammo and a damage buff, but at the same time, who's actually using a sniper for guaranteed damage nowadays? I'm pretty sure they would just use something else. Then for the main current stuff, we have Sinuna SI6, which is an Amalon burst pistol, which means it is also, you know, Amalon origin trait, not so great in terms of massive changes, but it is stasis, so it has access to headstone. It won't have choke clip though, just because these archetypal things just don't get that. But aside from that as well, it's a pretty meh thing, just because it's still a sidearm. Then we have the old Sterling, which, like many things, it is Strand, which means it has access to things like Hatchling and the variety, with a field-tested origin trait because it is of the Gunsmith variety. And at the same time, an adaptive auto rifle isn't so bad, but at the same time, we're gonna get, I forget if it is, but Horror Story will be coming back with Festival Lost, which might be its most current competition in terms of an adaptive frame auto rifle. And then Funnel Web and Old Faithful for lots of people, even though I kind of hate it. Subsistence Thresh is kind of a not that great role, but at the same time, a lot of people still will say this is the replacement for, what's it called? I completely forgot what it was. And then we have Staccato 46, which is a solar scout rifle from Season of the Haunted. One of the first things that had incandescent on it, which this roll is not so great. I would still recommend this gun wholeheartedly, although it's just generally not something I would pick over a good rolled Vision of Confluence at this point. And then Nazradin, which is a uppercut sword, is same as Geodetic HSM. Both of them just kind of void and arc versions of the same out-of-date sword, just because uppercut swords just don't generally have a place in the metas. And another random set of gear from a variety of random planets. Nothing exactly focused, it's just kind of world drop armor, again, regardless of the stats, in case you wanted it for transmog. But speaking of that, for shaders, we have actually one of the cooler ones, Valkyrie Zero, which is a personal favorite because if you can tell by my armor, it gives you a very dark with a blood red look. I enjoy this on my Sweet Business setup, but at the same time, the thing that's hardest about it is the bright orange it seems to give to eventually some piece of armor. Like, literally, if you put this on a piece of armor, and even perfectly with my Titan, you see no orange on anything, but then it's all over the class item. That's how it always goes. And then we also have Kairos Bronze, which is from Season of Osiris, back during Season 2. It's a pretty solid look, especially if you want to have a clean kind of white and bronze look to it. But at the same time, I wouldn't exactly vouch for it exactly if you already have a good look set up. And then another one of those faction shaders that looks better than some legendaries, New Monarchy Diamonds, which, looking at it this way, it's kind of bland compared to some other ones, but it's still a pretty solid look nonetheless, in case you wanted to rep some Lannister red and gold. But on that note, that's pretty much everything in terms of the game that's happening today. And now, of course, stories going forward, but I always do these before the story, so I don't know if there's any sort of big happenings just yet. So bear with me on that when I get to it in the next couple of videos. With that, my name is Matt Scorpion, and thank you for watching.